I would like to welcome the panelists for this afternoon session. Please come on stage. Anuradha ji. Very good afternoon. We are aware that more than the audience that we are addressing here, this is going out live on multiple channels. So this will be like a permanent record of whatever we are speaking in terms of psychological impact. So with that in mind, I would like to start with each of you introducing yourself, and then we'll come back with questions and your opinion. So, sir, what to you?
Namaskaram. ഞാൻ MG ദിലീപ്. ഞാൻ കേരള ഗവൺമെൻറ്റിൻ്റെ അഗ്രികൾച്ചർ ഡിപ്പാർട്ട്മെൻറ്റിലെ സീനിയർ സൂപ്രണ്ടായിട്ട് ജോലി ചെയ്യുന്നു. അതോടൊപ്പം തന്നെ കുങ്ഫു അസോസിയേഷൻ്റെ നാഷണൽ വൈസ് പ്രസിഡൻറ്റും കേരള കുങ്ഫു സ്പോർട്സ് അസോസിയേഷൻ്റെ പ്രസിഡൻറ്റുമായിട്ട് വർക്ക് ചെയ്യുകയാണ്.
Myself, Dr. Dhanapandian from National Institute of Speech and Hearing. I'm working as an assistant professor over there.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Rajiv Ambat. I come from Cochin. I run a company. I'm an entrepreneur. I run a company in lifestyle diseases management. But I look at lifestyle diseases from a fitness perspective. Essentially, it is a medical fitness company. That's what I do. Thank you.
Hello everyone, my name is Amar Rajan. I currently head my company called Mind Carter. We focus on psychometric assessments and leadership development programs for companies, and also we focus on employee engagement programs and employee assistance programs for the companies. Thank you.
So namaste, I am Dr. Anuradha Choudry. I am a faculty at IIT Kharagpur for Sanskrit and Indian psychology, but presently the coordinator for outreach for the Indian Knowledge Systems Division for the Ministry of Education at Delhi in AICT.
Thank you. Can we have somebody from technical side here just to turn down this cooler? It's very noisy. Also requesting a couple of stage crew volunteers to be here. All right, let me give a brief introduction about what the IKS Center for Kalarippayattu is planning to do. You heard the research done by Dr. Brian Moore. So way back in January when I contacted him, I told him that we would like to do something similar but with Kalarippayattu instead of the generic martial arts that he had done. So he suggested, and then we are working with National Institute of Speech and Hearing, the psychology team from there. So he suggested we go ahead with something that is slightly longer and larger in terms of student population and in terms of impact of martial arts. Now, the first question that I would like to start with, I know the background of two of you. Sitting at the extreme ends, I know that both of you have some martial arts background, definitely. Thank you very much. But do the three of you sitting in the middle have martial arts background before we start?
I have learned martial arts long back. When I was in school, I used to practice Kung Fu. So that was mainly for weight reduction. That was the main purpose. But still, I practiced for more than a year. And the impact was tremendous, marvelous result. So I still admire martial arts and a huge fan of all the martial arts across different cultures.
Rajiv?
Well, I'm not specifically into martial arts, but I'm into exercises, specifically weight training and also a lot of yoga and cardiovascular. So I mix up all these three types of exercises from a health and wellness perspective. Yeah.
I know Dhanapandian sir, you wanted to start martial arts.
No, actually, I don't get involved in any martial arts. But actually, I'm a sports person. I'm into cricket for long time.
Okay. So now we'll come back to the first question. So starting with you, you have had phenomenal amount of students over the years, including Sujitra, who is our IKS Center head. Uh, can you give us general pointers about 2 or 3 things that you have noticed which martial arts invariably does to the mental ability and stat of students?
നമ്മൾ കുട്ടികളുടെ കാര്യമാണ് ആദ്യം എടുക്കുന്നതെങ്കിൽ, കുട്ടികളെ ഉദ്ദേശിച്ചാണ് നമ്മൾ ആദ്യത്തെ സ്കൂൾ തലത്തിൽ മുതൽ ഉദ്ദേശിക്കുകയാണെന്നുണ്ടെങ്കിൽ, നമ്മുടെ കുട്ടികൾക്കുണ്ടാകുന്ന മാനസിക സംഘർഷങ്ങളാണ് അതിഭയങ്കരമായിട്ടുള്ളത്. അവർക്ക് എല്ലാത്തിനോടും ഭയമാണ്, ബഹുമാനമല്ല. ഇത് ഓപ്പോസിറ്റിലേക്ക് കൊണ്ടുവരാൻ വേണ്ടിയാണ് മാർഷൽ ആർട്സ് ശ്രമിക്കുന്നത്. ഒരു മാർഷൽ ആർട്സ് പഠിപ്പിക്കുന്ന അല്ലെ പഠിക്കുന്ന ഒരാൾ ഉദ്ദേശിക്കുന്നതെന്ന് പറഞ്ഞാൽ എല്ലാത്തിനെയും ബഹുമാനിക്കാനാണ്. നമ്മുടെ കുട്ടികൾക്കുള്ള ഇപ്പോഴത്തെ ഒരു മെൻ്റൽ പ്രശ്നം എന്താണെന്ന് ചോദിച്ചാൽ എല്ലാത്തിനോടും ഭയമാണ്. കാരണം അധ്യാപകനെ കണ്ടാൽ ഭയമാണ്, ബഹുമാനമല്ല. ക്വസ്റ്റ്യൻ പേപ്പർ കണ്ടാൽ ഭയമാണ്. പരീക്ഷയുടെ തലേ ദിവസം ഓട്ടോമാറ്റിക്കായിട്ട് പനി ഉണ്ടാകുന്നു, വയറുവേദന ഉണ്ടാകുന്നു. ഇത് അവരുടെ ഒരു ചേഞ്ചാണ്. അതിനെ മറികടക്കണമെന്നുണ്ടെങ്കിൽ ഇപ്പം നിങ്ങൾ കുങ്ഫുവിൻ്റെ ഒരു പെർഫോമൻസ് കണ്ടു. 6 വയസ്സുകാരനാണ്, ഒരുപക്ഷെ ഏറ്റവും പ്രായം കുറഞ്ഞൊരു പെർഫോമർ ആയിരിക്കും അത്. 6 വയസ്സുകാരനാണ് ഇപ്പം പെർഫോം ചെയ്തത്. അതുപോലെ തന്നെ പെൺകുട്ടികൾ പെർഫോം ചെയ്തു. പെൺകുട്ടികൾ സ്വന്തമായിട്ടാണ് വീട്ടിൽ നിന്ന് വന്നത്, അവരുടെ പേരൻസ് കൂട്ടത്തിൽ വന്നിട്ടില്ല. നമ്മുടെ ഏറ്റവും വലിയൊരു പ്രശ്നം അവിടെയാണ്. നമ്മുടെ ഒരു കുട്ടികളെ നമ്മൾ വളർത്തിയെടുക്കുമ്പോൾ ഒരു സ്കൂൾ അക്കാഡമിക്കിനപ്പുറത്തേക്ക് മാർഷൽ ആർട്ടിൻ്റെ പ്രത്യേകത എന്താണ്, ഗുണം എന്താണെന്ന് ചോദിച്ചാൽ അവർക്ക് അവരുടെ കാര്യങ്ങൾ സെൽഫായിട്ട് ചെയ്യാൻ സാധിക്കുന്നു. ഇതൊരു വലിയ മാറ്റമായിരിക്കും. കുട്ടികളെ നിർബന്ധമായിട്ടും മാർഷൽ ആർട്സിലേക്ക് വിട്ടാൽ, ഒരു നല്ല മാർഷൽ ആർട്സ് അധ്യാപകൻ്റെ അടുക്കൽ നല്ലൊരു ക്ലാസ്സിലാണ് എങ്കിൽ അതൊരു മറ്റൊരു രൂപത്തിലേക്കായിരിക്കും ആ കുട്ടി ചേഞ്ചായി വരുന്നത്. മാനസികമായിട്ട് അതിഭയങ്കരമായ ഒരു മാറ്റമായിരിക്കും അതിനുണ്ടാവുന്നത്.
സെൽഫ് റിലയൻസ് ഫസ്റ്റ്.
When students or youngsters, they are involved in the martial arts, definitely they will improve their attention and concentration, and their physical fitness, first of all, they will improve, and they used to have a more self-resilience as well as self-regulation. Very importantly, when we are talking about a psychological factor, we used to see many kids with behavioral issues, with a more number of complaints. When the students are involving in the martial arts, we used to see the discipline first, and second, they have a self-regulation. Wherever they feel a failure, they feel that, okay, I can overcome of it. Even though they are having a less grade, but they have a very good emotional skill and the stability. That is a very important component when it comes to the martial arts. So that will give a great impact. When we are talking about the research, whenever we are talking about Indian martial arts, so there is a knowledge, there is a science, but there is no connection. So this study, it's going to make a connection between the knowledge and science. When you are doing this larger population, when you are getting a result, whether it's a positive or negative, it's going to be as a science. That's what this study would be, the very important study. The Kalarippayattu, whether it's going to give a resilience, self-efficacy, whether it's impact on their general health. That's what we are going to study. It's going to be a very important study in Indian context.
Well, I don't have to necessarily tell all of you that exercises or martial arts or any sort of physical activity is going to make us feel good, improve our emotional well-being. We all know that, right? We are all educated people here. So I don't have to necessarily tell you that. I just want to add certain aspects to it. Why does this happen, right? Why do a person... There's a term called the runner's high. When you go out for a running, and when you come back, and when you do any sort of physical activity, you generally feel elevated. Your mood is good, right? And these are all the happy hormones, neurotransmitter hormones, which get secreted in our head and in our body, such as serotonin, oxytocin, endorphins. This actually makes you dopamine. These makes you feel good. These makes you feel happy. In fact, when it comes to, I'm talking about exercise in a general. I'll come to the martial arts bit of it. When a person is depressed, I'm talking about clinical depression, one category of the drug or a medication that is given by doctors are serotonin, SNRI drug, serotonin norepinephrine reuptake inhibitor drug. Essentially, it basically means it's a medication which increases the amount of serotonin to fight depression. It's one class of medication. And any sort of physical activity, exercises, helps our body to create this kind of neurotransmitters in our body, naturally will help in improving the mood. Now, I earlier said I'm an entrepreneur. I'm a 4-time failed fifth startup entrepreneur. I did go through certain kind of clinical depression, and my resort of getting over this was actually getting into exercises, and I was severely depressed. So it does have an impact. Coming to the martial arts perspective of that, I'm trying to link it up here. Obviously, we are talking about young youth, kids, and all those. Sir has already spoken about wanting to achieve something even if you're failed and all that aspect. But that aside, when you apply this, in fact, I would urge that even irrespective of even if you're not young, even after say 20 years of age, 30 years of age, or 40 years of age, try to get the elements of these martial arts into our daily day-to-day life. Obviously, you can't do a flip like how those smart kids were doing earlier here. We can't do that, right? We might get a catch in our back, but we need to be sensible about it. And there are certain elements of it we can improve. And that's definitely something which will improve overall, apart from confidence and all those things. I don't have to speak about it. You already know about it. Thank you.
Yeah, one of the things that Agasthyam Kalari has done, and which is why we are part of the IKS, is Dr. Mahesh Kurikal has innovated possibility of practicing Kalari for all ages. So my nephew practices Nitya Kalari, which is the hardcore thing. I am part of Nalludal program, which is a Kalari-based fitness program where we pretend to be doing Kalari, but it's mostly a fitness program. My mother practices something called Prana. She's nearly 70. So that is like a dynamic Tai Chi, or where you have the flexibility and things going on. So at every age, I have seen the impact keeping on changing. Over to you, Amar.
Yeah, as my colleague said, definitely this martial arts has an impact on mental well-being and also the physical well-being. But as a psychologist, what I see martial arts is any martial arts you take, it is actually a system. You're not just practicing exercises. Rather, you're practicing a system wherein you have a master and you learn quite a lot of life skills, quite a lot of system. As a cultural bounded habitual formation, we learn through practicing martial arts. You take Kalari, you can't just go and just practice. There is a system involved in that. You need to go there. You have a prayer, you have a master, and you have to respect the master. You have to show lot of things in line with practicing Kalari as a martial arts. So when you learn and practice martial arts, you learn quite a lot of things. In psychology, there is a very popular and very relevant theoretical concept called social learning theory by Albert Bandura, which says, he focuses more on modeling process and how people learn from watching others. So this Kalari as a martial arts, when you look at it, you have a master as a role model when it comes to probably the actions he does, even the behavior other than the Kalari Thattu. When you move out from the Kalari Thattu, how the master behaves, what kind of behaviors he is teaching his disciples, everything matters. So that is what I am more interested in as a psychologist. As a Kung Fu master said, today students feel less confident, So it is beyond confidence building. There are a lot of psychological studies available to refer, which states that long-term practice of martial arts, bring in a lot of qualities in students as well as other adults. So practicing a martial arts is always, psychologically, it is definitely a boost. So I totally, vouch for practicing martial arts in terms of the school curriculum onwards. That's what my take on this.
Before we get to Anuradha ji, one of the main trends that is happening right now is that we are trying to package education into content. So we are trying to avoid this whole master teacher presence as much as possible. We want the teachers to be content deliverers, and then we take the content and we are happy to be the content. So the Guru-shishya, the parampara, which is what created the whole system, is now being sidelined. You don't need the teacher, you only need the video. that kind of an impact. But see, that can work for very small skill development aspects. That's how I think. You can gain a skill, but the life lessons that happens, the ethics, the values, the systems, the psychological resilience, the self-reliance, they are monkey see, monkey do. I still think you have to see a good monkey to become a proper monkey yourself. So given that propensity, this becomes very, very important that our students who are almost always on the mobile have some human interaction where they have somebody to look up to. Over to you.
So thank you. I find myself in a very unique position here to speak because I grew up in the Sri Aurobindo International Center of Education, which laid a lot of emphasis on physical education in general. So I grew up doing all the sports, all kinds of sports. I also learned martial arts. So I did judo for about 12 years. I did some boxing. I did some wrestling. Now I'm trying some Kalarippayattu. And then I've also got a background in psychology and I have a background in Sanskrit. So I think all of this put together puts me in quite a special position to try and share a first person experience around this background that I have. And one of the things that I would like to share in the beginning is that each of these physical education activities gives us a different shade of personal growth. So even the different martial arts form don't all give us the same things. They give us some of it in different measures across martial arts. So for example, what maybe judo does, judo jiu-jitsu, so they of course help us build agility. They help us also recognize that it doesn't matter the size, the person in front, their size doesn't matter. If you have the right technique and if you have the right way of using force, one can still win. So these are all certain very subtle psychological laws, I would say, that are derived subconsciously when one is engaging in this kind of a physical encounter through the martial art thing. And then the other one also is that, so for example, with judo, jiu-jitsu, it builds that confidence, especially as a woman also, that gender also, that angle is also there. Because we've done it with people who are bigger than us, men who are bigger than us. And we know that if you do these techniques, you can still drop anybody, basically. This is not to scare anybody, but the fact is that that little bit of confidence that one gets is sufficient to allow one to hold one's head and walk in any crowd from a gender perspective. So the gender perspective is very important. And then, like I was saying, there is a different energy underlying these different martial art forms. So the energy of boxing is quite different from the energy of, let's say, Kalarippayattu. It's quite a different kind of aggression, and that's also because the underlying worldviews are different, slightly. So all these Indian martial arts, Indian-related, the Eastern martial arts, have a certain way of understanding human nature, which is a composite of the body, the emotion, the mind, and the spirit. And the very important role that prana, or the life energy, plays in moving our being. It's not just, and therefore the focus is more than on technique of footwork or of handwork and all. The technique is really on trying to first settle the breath, settle the prana within. And that learning of settling the prana has incredible rippling effects on every other domain of life, be it in academics, be it in social circles, be it in professional life. But just that ability to hold one's breath and move it in the manner that one believes is required for that given situation. And also the ability to hold the breath also allows us to broaden one's own being and receive what is coming in a more alert manner. So these are certain very direct benefits that come out of it. And one last thing that struck me as I was sitting here is that in the Indic system of education, when you talked of Guru-shishya, parampara and all of that, the whole goal of education was twofold. So there was this concept of a para-vidya and an apara-vidya. So apara-vidya was about technique, but para-vidya was about fine-tuning the instrument, the human instrument itself. And if that human instrument is refined and the human instrument is more aligned with itself and attuned to movement, then it is, again, more better poised to receive the different blows of life and find the right defenses. So just the last thing with this Paravidya, you see that with the different weapons, that no matter how many weapons you have, but at the end of the day, supposing you find yourself in front of an armed person and you don't have any weapons, how does one still just rely on that sole instrument of the human body and the sharpness of the mind in order to, defend oneself and use the force of the other to beat the other. So many very subtle but very powerful learnings from martial arts training.
Thank you. When we had met the station commander, Shauri Chakra Brigadier Lalit Sharma, raised an interesting point which came up in the Chinmaya Vidyalaya student interaction as well, because one of the questions they asked was, we have atom bomb, we have AK-47, what is the point of having some martial arts knowledge? So what he had said is, even for a great soldier, the last weapon that he has access to is his own body and mind, which is what takes the courage once you are in the battlefield to act on it. And today I saw the 6-year-old boy, morning we saw the 10-year-old boy, and I was only thinking about what the McKinsey CEO was saying about it, this being India's century. There is no question about it. Once you see such people, you understand the flow, the energy that they come on. So my next question, Amar, you can take it. It's about the mind-body duality. Right? We are too much into a dual situation, I think, with all the medicinal fixing of whatever can be done. I have a headache, I take this. I have a leg ache, I take that. So I've divided my body into fragments. Similarly, I think it automatically does a mind fragmentation as well. When I come to college, I am a student. The moment I get into a bus, I am somebody else. The moment I look at my Instagram, I'm a totally different beast altogether. So how do you think a martial arts practice, we cannot have this dichotomy? As in Kalarippayattu, they say your body is the eye. You are completely alert in the situation. So how does martial arts help with to mitigate this mind-body duality?
Great question. In psychology, we learn about self, okay? And when we learn about self, this concept of self is a very interesting concept. We learn about self in terms of congruent self and incongruent self. Congruent self is, my name is Amar, I'm practicing psychology, and where do I stand? I judge myself in a realistic manner. So you see, as a principal of this institute, and we are engaging now, you have an impression about myself, my talents, my skill. Do I match with that? Or do I have an elevated self-perception? If I have an elevated self-perception, I call it as an incongruent self-perception. In a very plain and simple manner, I write an exam and come back and say that out of 100, I will hit 100, but I get only 1 mark. That is incongruent self-perception in one way. If I say that I get 98 marks and I end up getting 97 or maybe 99, this is congruent self. Now, when you learn martial arts, you can't be incongruent to yourself because you are what you are on the ground. You can't fake that, Amar is a very flexible guy. Where is your flexibility? Show it on the ground. You have to explicitly, you have to prove it yourself. So in that way, when you look at it, martial arts makes you prove your mettle. You can't hide it, or maybe I would say you can't fake it. Now, rightly said, these days we have a social media image that is altogether, it's absolutely different from the real perspective. I might be taking some photographs and posting it in Instagram, looking at different corners, different angles. Maybe I edit according to my taste and whichever way I look the best. That is not the real me. There is a lot of incongruent self-images we see everywhere. And that incongruent other self-images will create a lot of anxieties and comparison within us. But practicing this martial arts, people even actually understand. Now, if you do a backflip, the other guy who is practicing the martial arts will understand the pain behind that. You can't simply say that, with a, just a flip, oh, this is very easy. Nobody can say that. That kind of a knowledge will come only from a system like a martial arts. That is actually how the entire martial arts actually bring in, changes. They get realistic. They can't be fake. That is my take on this.
Right.
Because you mentioned your own experiences and then how exercise brought you out from a mental state. So
Right. So, okay, so I'll draw parallels to what happened in my own case. I used to wake up every day in the morning, and I used to be very academically oriented, high flying, come out of college with first day zero placement job and all that. And I got into a segment. I mean, everybody, running a startup is sexy, right? Everybody in Bangalore wants to run a company, startup. That's what I also did. And I thought I'll come out of it in fly colors. And then, failure, absolute failure. So, very interesting that you actually quoted about social media. I used to wake up and then log into Facebook. I would see people checked in from Newark Airport, traveling to Sydney for a 1-week consultation. From there, traveling to Italy. Wonderful tulip gardens and flowers being kept. And I look at it and I was like, shit, look at that. And today I jokingly say, there was a time in my, a few years back, wherein the ATM pin was bigger than the amount it was guarding. So, the kind of the psychological pressure that it goes to, and you think that you are a bloody failure. And I used to wake up in the morning. I never used to get sleep to wake up in first place. And, my eyes kind of went inside and I became, I started getting acidity. It's quite natural. When you're tensed, you get acidity, loose stools all the time. Completely screwed up lifestyle. And that's when one of my friends actually said that, you need to do something about it. Start exercising. And that's how I actually got into that, and it has worked wonders for me. It did. And I'm saying this from my own experience, and it did work wonders for me. And it is a different thing that I kind of managed to, pivot my startup into exercises and applying exercises to helping people with lifestyle. But my understanding is that when people come to us with lifestyle diseases, management or whatever, underlyingly, there is also some sort of a psychological issue also. So when we work with people, I ask them, what is your why? WHY in capital letters, bold. Why do you want to do this? Find out what your why is. That why might be as simple as, in 3 months down the line, I want to go to Goa. And I'm meeting my friends and I'm meeting them after 10 years. And I don't look like an uncle or an aunt. People actually say that, and that's the real motivation for them. So find out that why. And once that why is clear, everything else is a noise. Just that why is clear, the mind, the body will follow. You just need to structure it and pace it. And that is important, especially after certain years of age, because your body is not very agile. You can't do these flips and things like that. That girl who was dancing for that song, the way she was standing on one hand, the amount of physical strength that it has, we might not have it necessarily. So it needs to be structured. But, at the end of the day, body will follow the mind wherever you want to take it. You just need to structure it and reach it. Psychological impact, yes, but also a lot of physiological impact also. Yeah.
Dhanapal, you have worked with a variety of people, but especially in the niche context. That's what I want to ask. So how do you see this mind-body thing with the student population, the research population there?
I'm working with a special need population, especially when you are meeting them, when you are converse with them. It's completely different from what we are seeing in a normal context. Okay, when you are speaking with a person with hearing impairment, you have to be very clear that what you are going to talk and how to you are converse with it. They cannot hear, but they will watch. So whatever they do, they will do it 100%. That is what we are observing it. They don't have much distraction through auditory inputs. So when there is no auditory inputs, it's not distracting you, then you will be more alert and you will be more focused. When you are come to niche, you can see all paintings. It's awesome paintings by the students, especially for the special needs. If you see their work, it's very, very impressive. The reason is they are not distracted, they are more focused, and their creative thoughts comes in. When it comes to the your earlier question, when we are trying to keep this martial arts to them, that will definitely add an advantage to them, since we used to see, though they have a capacity, though they have a, all kinds of achievements, but when they are into the society, they are facing a great negative attitude towards them, though they are very capable. Due to the terms, there are 3 terms we usually use: impairment, disability, handicap. Impairment, any loss, hearing impairment. Disability, due to that impairment, it's limiting their performance. that's a disability. But through assistance, through training, we can limit their disability. But when it comes to the handicap, it's a societal perspective. They used to think that a person who is not able to hear, they cannot perform anything. So that is what there. Then it's repeated feedback from the society. They have their schema that I cannot do anything. So here, that's a one good thing is about IKS. When you are inviting us to part of this project, we are very happy. The reason is the next project would be for the person with disabilities. When we are seeing the amount of improvement in the so-called normal population, definitely that will be more into the person with disabilities. We are moving forward towards the person with disability to inclusive. We need to make an inclusive society rather than we are isolate them and we are saying person with disability, we have to keep our right. So we have to be very clear that we need to have a clear attitude towards that. They are part of our world. We are not including them. We are not including them. We are giving a rights without any compromise. We have to be very clear. And according to Rights for Person with Disability Act, it's clearly stated that any persons can have any kind of disability. They are having a rights to live their life without any compromise. Thank you.
നമ്മൾ ഇപ്പം ഇത്രയും നേരവും സംസാരിച്ചിരുന്നതിനകത്തുനിന്ന് ഒരു കാര്യം നമ്മൾ കൂടുതലായിട്ട് മനസ്സിലാക്കേണ്ടത്, ഞാൻ പത്തനംതിട്ട ജില്ലയിലെ കുന്നന്താനം എന്നുള്ള ഗ്രാമത്തിൽ നിന്നാണ് വരുന്നത്. ആ ഗ്രാമമാണ് ഇന്ത്യയിലെ ആദ്യ സമ്പൂർണ്ണ യോഗാ ഗ്രാമം. അത് ഞാൻ 2017 അങ്ങനെ ഒരു യോഗാ ഗ്രാമമായിട്ട് അതിനെ മാറ്റിയത്. ഒരു വീട്ടിൽ നിന്ന് ഒരാളെ വീതം യോഗ പരിശീലിപ്പിക്കുകയും അവരുടെ കുടുംബാംഗങ്ങളെ പരിശീലിപ്പിക്കുകയും ചെയ്യുക എന്നുള്ളൊരു പ്രോഗ്രാമായിരുന്നു ഞാൻ അന്ന് ചെയ്തത്. അത് ചെയ്തപ്പോൾ ആദ്യം ഇത് സ്റ്റാർട്ട് ചെയ്യാനായിട്ട് ഞാൻ പഞ്ചായത്തിൽ സംസാരിച്ചപ്പോഴത്തേക്കിനും താങ്കൾക്ക് വിശ്വാസം ഉണ്ടെങ്കിൽ തുടങ്ങിക്കോളൂ എന്ന് പറഞ്ഞിട്ട് എൻ്റെ കയ്യിലോട്ട് ഇങ്ങ് തന്നതേ ഉള്ളത്. അതുമായിട്ട് ഞാനൊരു പള്ളിയിൽ സമീപിച്ചപ്പോഴത്തേക്കിനും എനിക്ക് 2 പേരാണ് അന്ന് ആദ്യമായിട്ടുണ്ടായിരുന്നത്, വെറും 2 പേർ. അപ്പോഴെനിക്ക് മനസ്സിലായി മാർഷൽ ആർട്സ് എന്നാണ്, യോഗ എന്നാണ് എന്നുള്ളതിനെ പറ്റി ഒരു എതിർ വാദമാണ് ജനങ്ങൾക്കുള്ളിൽ മനസ്സിലായി തുടങ്ങി. ഞാൻ ആദ്യമേ തന്നെ അന്ന് അവിടുത്തെ പള്ളിയിലെ അച്ഛന്മാരെ 2 പേരെ വിളിച്ചുകൊണ്ട് പോയിട്ട് എന്താണെന്ന് പഠിപ്പിച്ചു. അപ്പോൾ അതിൻ്റെ പിറ്റേ ഞായറാഴ്ച പള്ളിയിലെ യോഗത്തിൽ അവിടെ അച്ഛന്മാർ സംസാരിച്ചു, ഞങ്ങളുടെ അനുഭവമാണിത്, നിങ്ങൾ അടുത്ത പ്രാവശ്യം വരണമെന്ന് പറഞ്ഞു. അങ്ങനെ ഞാൻ പരിശീലിപ്പിച്ചിട്ട് ആ 2-ൽ നിന്ന് ഞാൻ 16,780 പേരെയാണ് പരിശീലിപ്പിച്ചത്. കുന്നന്താനം എന്നുള്ള ഒരു ഗ്രാമത്തെ CNN അടക്കമുള്ള ചാനൽ ന്യൂയോർക്കിൽ നിന്ന് വന്നിരുന്നു. അന്നവിടെ ഈ പ്രോഗ്രാമുകളെല്ലാം ടെലികാസ്റ്റ് ചെയ്തു. ഈ പറഞ്ഞു വന്നത്, അന്ന് 3 മാസത്തെ പരിശീലനം കഴിഞ്ഞപ്പോൾ ഒരു 75 വയസ്സുള്ള ഒരു അമ്മ എൻ്റെ അടുക്ക് വന്നിട്ട് ചോദിച്ചു, സാറേ ഞാനൊരു കാര്യം സ്റ്റേജിൽ വന്ന് പറയുന്നതുകൊണ്ട് സാറിന് ബുദ്ധിമുട്ടുണ്ടോ എന്ന് ചോദിച്ചു. ഞാൻ പറഞ്ഞു എനിക്ക് ബുദ്ധിമുട്ടൊന്നുമില്ല, നിങ്ങൾ പറഞ്ഞോളൂ എന്ന് പറഞ്ഞു. അപ്പോൾ പറഞ്ഞത്, എൻ്റെ വീട്ടിൽ കഴിഞ്ഞ ഒരു 3 വർഷമായിട്ട് ഒരു പ്രത്യേക ദിവസങ്ങളിൽ ഞങ്ങൾക്കെല്ലാം വളരെ ശോകമായ ദിവസങ്ങളാണ്. ഞങ്ങളുടെ വീട്ടിലാരും പണിക്ക് പോകാറില്ല, അല്ലെ ഭക്ഷണം കഴിക്കാറില്ല. അപ്പോൾ എന്താണെന്ന് ചോദിച്ചാൽ പറയാം, അവരുടെ കൊച്ചുമകള് അവൾക്ക് പീരീഡ്സ് ആയിട്ട് 3 വർഷമായി. ഈ 3 വർഷമായും ആ കുട്ടിക്ക് ഈ ദിവസങ്ങളിൽ വയറുവേദനയാണ്. ആ വയറുവേദന എന്ന് പറഞ്ഞാൽ മറ്റൊരാളോട് പറഞ്ഞാൽ അനുഭവിക്കാത്ത തരത്തിലുള്ള വേദന. അവർക്ക് പറയാൻ നാണക്കേട്, കുട്ടി മുറിക്കുള്ളിൽ നിന്ന് പുറത്തിറങ്ങൂല. ഈ ദിവസങ്ങളിൽ ഭക്ഷണം കഴിക്കാത്തതുകൊണ്ട് ഇവരുടെ വീട്ടുകാരും ഭക്ഷണം കഴിക്കൂല, ഇവരും പുറത്തോട്ട് പോകുകയില്ല ഈ ദിവസങ്ങളിൽ. ഈ 3 വർഷമായിട്ട് അവർ അനുഭവിച്ചുകൊണ്ടിരുന്ന ഒരു കാര്യമാണ്. അപ്പം നമ്മൾ കുറച്ച് അബ്ഡോമിനൽ എക്സർസൈസുകളും ഭുജംഗാസനം അടക്കമുള്ള എക്സർസൈസുകൾ കൊടുത്തപ്പോൾ അതിനൊരു മാറ്റം ഉണ്ടായിട്ട് അതിൻ്റെ തലേ ദിവസം ആ കുട്ടിക്ക് ഈ പീരീഡ്സ് ഉണ്ടായ സമയത്ത് യാതൊരു പ്രശ്നവും ഇല്ലാതെ അത് സ്കൂളിൽ പോയി. അപ്പോൾ അവർ പറഞ്ഞു, ഞങ്ങൾ ഇത്രയും 3 വർഷമായിട്ട് ഞങ്ങൾ അനുഭവിച്ച ഒരു വേദന പബ്ലിക്കിൻ്റെ മുമ്പിൽ ഞങ്ങൾ പറഞ്ഞേ പറ്റുള്ളൂ എന്ന് പറഞ്ഞു. നമുക്കറിയാം നമ്മുടെ സമൂഹത്തിൽ എത്ര പേര് ഇത് അനുഭവിക്കുന്നുണ്ട്. പുറത്ത് പറയാനുള്ള മെൻ്റൽ ഇതില്ലാത്തതുകൊണ്ടും മെൻ്റലി അവർക്ക് ഫിറ്റ് അല്ലാത്തതുകൊണ്ടും അവർക്ക് ഫിസിക്കലി ഫിറ്റ് അല്ലാത്തതുകൊണ്ടും. അപ്പം നമ്മൾ പഠിപ്പിക്കുന്ന മാർഷൽ ആർട്സ് ആണേലും യോഗയാണേലും ഫിസിക്കലിയും മെൻ്റലിയും ചേഞ്ച് ആവും എന്നുള്ളതിൻ്റെ ഒരു തെളിവായിരുന്നു അത്. അവരത്രയും വന്നത്. അതായത് 72 വയസ്സുള്ള അമ്മൂമ്മയും 15 വയസ്സുള്ള മകളും കൂടി ഒന്നിച്ചാണ് വന്നത്. അവിടെ കൊച്ചുമകളും കൂടി ഒന്നിച്ചാണ് വന്നത്. അപ്പോൾ അവർക്ക് 2 പേരും പ്രാക്ടീസ് ചെയ്യാൻ പറ്റുന്നുണ്ട്. അതാണ് നമ്മൾക്കൊരു തിരിച്ചറിവ് വേണ്ടിയത്. ഇപ്പോൾ അതാണ് ഞാനിപ്പോൾ ചിരിക്കുന്നത് ശരിക്കും ഒരു എബവ് 40, എബവ് 50 ആൾക്കാരുടെ പ്രതിനിധിയായിട്ടാണ് ശരിക്കും വന്നേക്കുന്നത്. അങ്ങനെ വേണം വരാനായിട്ട്. നമുക്കൊരു മകനുണ്ട് എന്നുണ്ടെങ്കിൽ നമ്മളൊരു ഏജ് ആയി, കുട്ടിക്ക് 15 വയസ്സായെങ്കിൽ അച്ഛനും അമ്മയും പറയും ഞങ്ങൾക്ക് വയസ്സായി എന്നാണ് പറയുന്നത്. ഒരു കാര്യവും അവർ ചെയ്യാറില്ല. അവർ ഫിസിക്കലി അവരൊരു റോൾ മോഡലല്ല. അവർ റോൾ മോഡൽ ആയെങ്കിൽ മാത്രമേ ഇതിന് മാറ്റങ്ങൾ ഉണ്ടാവത്തുള്ളൂ. മക്കളെ മെന്റലി ഫിറ്റ് ആക്കണം. ഫിസിക്കലി ഫിറ്റ് ആക്കാൻ ഏത് സമയത്തും പറ്റും. മെന്റലി എങ്ങനെ ഫിറ്റ് ആക്കാം? മെന്റലി ഫിറ്റ് ആകണേ ഒരു മാർഷൽ ആർട്ട് തന്നെ വേണം. അതിനൊരു ശരിക്കുമുള്ള ഒരു എക്സർസൈസുകൾ തന്നെ ഉണ്ടാവണം. അതിൻ്റെ ഒരു ബാക്ക്ഗ്രൗണ്ട് ഉണ്ടാവണം. എൻ്റെ 50-ാമത്തെ വയസ്സിലാണ് എനിക്ക് തോന്നിയത് ഹോഴ്സ് റൈഡിങ് പഠിക്കണമെന്ന്. 50-ാമത്തെ വയസ്സിൽ തോന്നി ഹോഴ്സ് റൈഡിങ് പഠിക്കണമെന്ന്. ഞാൻ പോയി 2 കുതിരകളെ വാങ്ങിച്ചുകൊണ്ട് വന്നു. എൻ്റെ വീട്ടിൽ കൊണ്ട് നിർത്തിയിട്ട് ഞാൻ ഹോഴ്സ് റൈഡിങ് പഠിച്ചു. സുചിത്രയും മോളും അടക്കം വന്നു. അപ്പൊ എൻ്റെ അടുക്കൽ ഒരാൾ ചോദിച്ചു ഇപ്പോഴാണോ ഇതൊക്കെ തോന്നുന്നതെന്ന്. ഞാൻ അപ്പൊ തിരിച്ചു ചോദിച്ചു ഇനി എപ്പോൾ? അതുകൂടെ നിങ്ങൾ പറയണം. എൻ്റെ ആഫ്റ്റർ 50-ൽ എനിക്ക് തോന്നിയ ഒരു കാര്യം ഞാൻ സ്വന്തമായിട്ട് ചെയ്തപ്പോൾ നിങ്ങൾ വിമർശിക്കുന്നു. ഇപ്പോഴാണോ തോന്നിയത്? അപ്പോൾ അതിനുള്ള ആൻസർ നിങ്ങൾ തരണം. എപ്പോൾ? ഇനിയും ഞാൻ ബെഡേ കിടക്കുമ്പോഴോ? എൻ്റെ ആഗ്രഹങ്ങൾ എപ്പോഴൊക്കെയാണേലും അത് ഞാൻ നടത്തിയിരിക്കും. അതാണ് എൻ്റെ മെന്റൽ പവർ. അതെനിക്ക് തന്നത് ഈ മാർഷൽ ആർട്ടാണ്. അപ്പൊ ആ രൂപത്തിൽ തന്നെ മാറുന്നതിനുള്ളൊരു മാറ്റമായിരിക്കണം മാർഷൽ ആർട്ട് എന്ന് പറയുന്നത്. അതായിരിക്കണം നല്ലതായിട്ട് വരേണ്ടത്. അതാണ് എൻ്റെ ഒരു അഭിപ്രായം.
Wonderful, wonderful experience sharing in this session. We'll close with one last question that I want to ask. The moment people talk about martial arts, the images that come have a connotation of violence associated. Even our martial arts Mela posters, they carry the sphere and the sword and everything. We deliberately made the logo of the martial arts to contain the Shanti Dhyan Mudra and the fist at the bottom. So this is a misconception. Anybody who has practiced martial arts knows. So can you please elaborate on how martial arts is fundamentally a very non-violent thing?
മുറിവൈദ്യൻ ആളെ കൊല്ലും. അതാണ് ഇതിൻ്റെ ഏറ്റവും വലിയൊരു പ്രശ്നം. ഇതെങ്ങനെ വയലന്റ് ആയിട്ട് മാറുന്നു എന്നുള്ളതിൻ്റെ തെളിവ് അതാണ്. ഒരു മാർഷൽ ആർട്ട് പഠിക്കാൻ വന്നാൽ ഒരു 10 പുഷപ്പ് എടുത്താൽ അവൻ വീട്ടിൽ ചെല്ലുമ്പോൾ ഞങ്ങളൊക്കെ അനുഭവിക്കുന്നതാണ്. അമ്മൂമ്മക്കിട്ട് ഇടിക്കുന്നു, അല്ലെ ഫ്രിഡ്ജ് തല്ലി പൊട്ടിക്കുന്നു എന്ന് പറയുന്ന കുട്ടികളുണ്ടാവും. ഒരു 3 മാസക്കാലം അവനെ ക്ലാസ്സിലേക്ക് വിടുക എന്നുള്ളതും അവനെ മെന്റലി ആദ്യം ചേഞ്ച് ചെയ്ത് കൊണ്ടുവരിക എന്നുള്ളതുമാണ് നമ്മുടെ കഴിവ്. അവിടെയാണ് വ്യത്യാസങ്ങൾ ഉണ്ടാവേണ്ടത്. നമ്മൾ പകുതി പഠിച്ചിട്ട് പോകുന്ന ഒരു വ്യക്തി അവൻ ഇതിനോട് താല്പര്യമില്ലാതെ പോകുമ്പോൾ ഇതിലേക്ക് തന്നെ നമ്മളുടെ ഒരു അക്കാഡമിക്കായിട്ട് ഇതിനെ കൊണ്ടുവന്ന് ഒരു മനുഷ്യൻ അവൻ്റെ ജീവിതകാലം മുഴുവൻ ഡെയിലി എന്ന് പറഞ്ഞാൽ രാവിലെ ആഹാരം കഴിക്കുന്നത് പോലെ തന്നെ എല്ലാ ദിവസവും രാവിലെ അവൻ്റെ ആരോഗ്യത്തിന് വേണ്ടി 1/2 മണിക്കൂർ വർക്കൗട്ട് ചെയ്യുന്നു. ആ വർക്കൗട്ട് ചെയ്തു വരുമ്പോൾ മാത്രമാണ് അവനൊരു പക്വത ഉണ്ടാകുന്നത്. അത് മെന്റലി ആണേലും ഫിസിക്കലി ആണേലും അവനൊരു പക്വത ഉണ്ടാകണമെന്നുണ്ടെങ്കിൽ അവൻ്റെ ഡേ ടു ഡേ വർക്ക് ആയിരിക്കണം അത്. ഇന്ന് രാവിലെ പല്ല് തേച്ചില്ല അല്ലെങ്കിൽ കുളിച്ചില്ല എന്ന് പറയുമ്പോൾ നമ്മൾക്കൊരു അസ്വസ്ഥതയാണ്. അതേ രീതിയിലുള്ള ഒരു രൂപത്തിലേക്ക് മാറണം. ഇന്ന് രാവിലെ ഞാനൊന്നും പ്രാക്ടീസ് ചെയ്തില്ല, ഞാനൊരു പ്രാണായാമം ചെയ്തില്ല, ഞാനൊന്ന് ബ്രീത്ത് ചെയ്തില്ല, ഞാൻ കുറച്ച് എക്സർസൈസ് എൻ്റെ ശരീരത്തിന് വേണ്ടി ഒന്നും ചെയ്തില്ല എന്ന് വന്നാൽ സംഭവിക്കുന്നത്. ഇതിനെ ഒരു സ്ഥിരം പ്രോഗ്രാം ആക്കി മാറ്റിയാൽ അക്കാഡമിക് തലത്തിൽ അതിപ്പോൾ അടുത്തൊരു കാര്യം വരുന്നുണ്ട് എങ്കിലും ഞാൻ ഇപ്പോൾ തന്നെ പറയാണ്. നമുക്കുള്ള ഏറ്റവും വലിയ ഡ്രോബാക്ക് എന്ന് പറഞ്ഞാൽ നമ്മൾക്ക് ഈ പറയുന്ന നമ്മൾ ഇന്നോ നാളെയോ കൊണ്ട് ഇത് നിർത്തുകയാണ്. ഇതിനെ ഒരു ഡേ ടു ഡേ വർക്കായിട്ട് മാറ്റുന്നില്ല. എൻ്റെ അച്ഛനും അമ്മയും എന്നെ പഠിപ്പിച്ചിട്ടില്ല നിന്റെ ശരീരത്തിന് വേണ്ടി നീ ഇന്നത് ചെയ്യണം, ആരോഗ്യത്തിന് വേണ്ടി നീ ഇന്നത് ചെയ്യണം എന്ന് എന്നെ പഠിപ്പിച്ചിട്ടില്ല. എൻ്റെ അധ്യാപകർ എന്നെ പഠിപ്പിച്ചിട്ടില്ല. ഞാൻ പഠിച്ച നഴ്സറി സ്കൂൾ മുതൽ എഴുതി വെച്ചേക്കുന്നത് ആഹാരത്തിന് മുമ്പ് കൈ കഴുകണമെന്നും പാത്രം അടച്ചു വെക്കണമെന്നും ബാത്റൂമിൽ പോയിട്ട് തിരിച്ചു വരുമ്പോൾ കൈ കഴുകണമെന്നും എഴുതി വെക്കുന്നത്. എൻ്റെ ഒരു സ്ഥലത്ത് പോലും ഒരു സ്കൂളിൽ പോലും ഞാൻ കണ്ടിട്ടില്ല ഇന്ന് വരെ നിന്റെ ശരീരത്തിന് വേണ്ടി നീ ഇന്നത് ചെയ്യണം എന്ന് എൻ്റെ കുട്ടിക്കാലത്ത് എനിക്ക് പറഞ്ഞു തന്നിട്ടില്ല. എൻ്റെ അച്ഛനും അമ്മയും ചെയ്യുന്നത് ഞാൻ കണ്ടിട്ടില്ല. ഒരു കുട്ടിയുടെ ഒരു 6 വയസ്സ് 7 വയസ്സ് വരെയുള്ള റോൾ മോഡൽ അവൻ്റെ മാതാപിതാക്കളാണ്. അതിനുശേഷമേ ഉള്ള അവൻ്റെ അധ്യാപകനും സിനിമാ നടന്മാരും ബാക്കിയല്ല. ആ വീട്ടിൽ എന്താണോ നടക്കുന്നത് അത് ഫോളോ ചെയ്യുന്നതാണ് കുഞ്ഞുങ്ങൾ. അവരുടെ മനസ്സിൽ അതാണ് തറച്ചു കയറുന്നത്. അതാണ് നമുക്ക് വേണ്ടത്. ആ രൂപത്തിൽ മുമ്പോട്ട് പോകുമ്പോൾ അവനൊരു 10th സ്റ്റാൻഡേർഡിൽ വരുമ്പോൾ അവനൊരു നല്ല പക്വതയുള്ള ഒരു കുട്ടിയായിട്ട് മാറും. അവൻ്റെ ജീവിതത്തിൽ ഒരു മാറ്റങ്ങൾ ഉണ്ടാകുന്ന അങ്ങനെയാണ്. അവനെ നമ്മളൊരു പ്രായമുള്ള ഒരാളിനെ വിളിച്ചിട്ട്, ഇപ്പം ഞങ്ങൾ കുട്ടികളുടെ കാര്യം പറഞ്ഞ് നമ്മളിപ്പോൾ എല്ലാവരും സംസാരിച്ചു. 50 വയസ്സ് കഴിഞ്ഞ ഒരാളിനോട് വിളിച്ചിട്ട് പറയാണ് ആ കുട്ടി അടിയിൽ എന്ന് പറയുമ്പോൾ ഒന്ന് ഡൈവ് ചെയ്തേ എന്ന് പറയുമ്പോൾ ആളിനെ മാനസികമായിട്ട് തളർത്തുക ചെയ്യുന്നത്. അല്ലാതെ ആ പുള്ളിയെ സന്തോഷിപ്പിക്കാനല്ല പറയുന്നത്. അതെല്ലാം മാനസികമായിട്ട് തളർത്തുക ചെയ്യുന്നത്. അതിനപ്പുറത്തേക്കുള്ള കാര്യങ്ങളാണ് ചെയ്യേണ്ടത്. അപ്പം നമുക്ക് എപ്പോഴും വേണ്ടത് ഒരു സിസ്റ്റമാറ്റിക് അക്കാഡമിക് ആയിട്ടുള്ള കാര്യങ്ങളിലേക്ക് കൊണ്ടുപോകണം ഇതിനെ. അപ്പോൾ വയലൻസ് കുറയും. ആ കുട്ടിക്ക് അത് മനസ്സിലാകും, അവൻ്റെ ഒരു പാർട്ടാണെന്ന് മനസ്സിലാവും, അവൻ്റെ ജീവിതത്തിലെ ഒരു പാർട്ടാണ് മാർഷൽ ആർട്ട് എന്നുള്ളത് മനസ്സിലാവും. അതാണ് വേണ്ടത്. അപ്പോൾ അവൻ്റെ ഒരു മാറ്റങ്ങളായിട്ട് തന്നെ മാറും.
Thank you, sir. I think this is the philosophy that is now leading the Bharatiya Creeda movement that's coming, where in EP we are trying to include Indian sports and Indian arts and bring them to 40,000 schools with masters, so that there is regular training and they feel that it is strongly part of education. At Trinity College, we have the IKS Center. So there is potential and opportunity for all the students and staff to learn Kalarippayattu here itself on campus. But still, people can make very elaborate excuses about why they are not going to do it, because it is never built into the system. That recognition is not there about how important this is.
No, when you're asking this question, I remember when I said to my relative, I'm going to study psychology. I started explaining what is psychology. They asked what is psychology. Then I explained many ways. It's failed. Then finally I said, mental doctor. Then they laughed. From then they stopped their talking to me. Yeah, they said like whenever I see them, then okay, like that. Then after a couple of years, when I into the field, when I used to write in articles in Tamil. Okay, when they started reading, oh, you know this also. Oh, you used to talk about human behavior. Huh? You used to talk about emotion. That kind of understanding came after 10 years of experience. So the same way, like we forgot our own traditional, systematic way of life. Now we are turned to that. Actually, that is due to many factors. That is many factors. As sir said, like we need to incorporate into the school system itself so that they can habituate. They need not wait until adolescent. When we had a discussion with our executive director, she was very concerned about the alarming increasing the drug abuse. So when their kids, they are taking alcohol or any drugs, the parents are vigilant to stop that. But actually, it has to be prevented well yearly if they are into any physical activities like martial arts. Why I'm particularly about martial arts? When you are doing martial arts, you will know yourself. Second, you love yourself. When you want to do it, if you want to go any games, you need someone else. But whereas when you do practicing martial arts, you can your own self, you can rely and you can make your commitment. That is very important. It has to be create awareness as a movement. It's not like we are sitting and talking here. It has to move like a movement so that it will bring a big change and we will turn to our own resource. Thank you.
His executive director, he mentioned, is Srimati Anjana IAS, who is the social justice in charge and general administration. So when we met her in this context of Kalarippayattu research with Nish, she joined our Kalari. See, that's, because people understand once the value, and she is Anuradha ji's batchmate in some of the online classes. So they practice together. But that's the kind of recognition. Once you have parents like that, then automatically the children will understand and get oriented. That's it.
Yeah, so to answer your question, so martial arts is essentially about harnessing the human potential. It would be psychological, physiological, multiple aspects around it, right? Now, when we harness the potential of anybody for that matter, let it be in terms of intelligence quotient or emotional quotient, or just about, in plain simple language, ende magan allengil magal smart aano. Okay, when we want them to be smart, right? But when we want them to be smart, there is a positive connotation around it. We don't intend that they are smart enough to be a terrorist. No, right? A terrorist also can be smart. We mean when we smart enough to be an administrator who makes a change in the society, smart enough to be a doctor who saves lives of many people, right? So that way, when we talk about harnessing the potential from a childhood, from a martial arts perspective, as he was earlier mentioning, there is a chitta to that, right? And there is a structure and process. So there is a structure towards that, and that also helps in grounding a person. Even a person, if is getting into exercises, you don't go to a gym and lift weights and start squatting or doing a deadlift. You'll start with simple stretches and warm-ups and slowly graduate. So that structure is important, I think, and that's the reason why the guru or the person who teaches or tells them how it needs to be progressed from one to another is what actually helps that person to be grounded with regards to how to use that potential. Otherwise, you have potential, but how are you using that potential will essentially make a difference, right? And I'm just also noting it out to the breath aspect that Madam was saying. When we are angry, when you are pissed off, what do we say? Breathe. Cool, Rajiv, breathe. What happens when we breathe? It's actually the sympathetic nervous system which works in wherein when I take deep abdominal breath. See, we live in this, again, social media era. ഒരു കല്യാണത്തിന് പോയി ഒരു ഫോട്ടോ എടുക്കണമെങ്കിൽ നമ്മൾ എന്താ ചെയ്യും? വയറക്കുള്ളിലേക്ക് പിടിച്ച് നേരെ പിടിച്ചിരിക്കും, right? We don't want the tummy to be seen out, right? What happens? വയറക്കകത്തേക്ക് പിടിച്ചിട്ട് ഇങ്ങനെ പിടിച്ചിരുന്നിട്ടുണ്ടെങ്കിൽ we are doing upper chest breathing. Very narrow, very shallow upper chest breathing, fast and spontaneous breathing, BP kudu, right? Whereas if you have a fitness watch, ittu kanitte heart rate, number of times the heart beats, adu deep abdominal breathing, adayithu chest porthekku vararudhu, only your tummy should come out, and breathe like that, a deep abdominal. Take a breath for around 3 seconds, breathe out for 4 to 5 seconds, and you would be amazed to see your all parameters dropping and settling down, your energy level settling down, your heart rate settling down to a normal sinus rhythm. So if it is structured and done in a right manner, it is not aggression. It actually, it is harnessing the true potential, and it can be channelized with these kind of chitta and plan and processes around it. So yeah, so that's my point on it. Thank you.
Just one interruption. Sujitra, can you please inform the next panelists to be ready so that we'll start? Okay, thank you.
Yeah, when it comes to this martial arts and aggression, that concept and that image, there are multiple researches that happened in that line. And, when it comes to the karate and kung fu, they have done researches in different grade levels. Something like, what is the aggression level of a black belt holder and a yellow belt holder. Yellow belt is a beginner level, or if it is a white belt, that is a beginner level. Now, what they found was, when the grade moves up, the aggression level is going down. So there is a correlation like that. So it all depends on, again, how this master, the philosophy of the master, the philosophy of the martial arts. Now, when you look at martial arts, Japanese, I think it is a Japanese martial arts called Aikido. Their philosophy is not offending somebody, but defending. So they focus more on defense, how they can defend beautifully, artistically the opponent. They are not aggressive. They are not offending someone. But somebody comes and attacking them, they know how to defend beautifully. That is the philosophy of the martial art. So Kalari has a philosophy of Kalari philosophy. Kung Fu has a philosophy of Kung Fu philosophy. So the aggression level depends on why this guy practicing martial arts. So he might be having some maybe a negative connotation when he joins for the martial arts class. If there is a master or maybe some of the colleagues who is fueling up that particular aim of his, then there is a probability of aggression, but that is very rare. Okay, because every martial arts has a system of its own and they have a philosophy of its own. So it's very rarely you see aggression boosting when they practice martial art. But probably a lot more researchers needs to be done in that area to have a valid, reliable opinion on that. But still, this is one research I came across when I looked into the aggression aspect and the martial arts.
I think Dilip sir said it rightly. Half-baked education will lead to aggression. If all I know is to break somebody or break something, then yeah.
Okay, so I'll try and bring in an Indic spin into this entire discourse. So I think the whole challenge in this, with this, the mudra as well as the punch, the balance is between force and wisdom. So how do we balance force and wisdom is the entire crux of martial art, of true martial art practice. I would even add that just the practice of martial art is also insufficient at times because of the attitude underlying it is about building the ego, then we are also defeating the purpose of the original spirit of that martial art. Because it is never about becoming more powerful over the other, but there was always this recognition within the Indic systems and I would say the contemplative tradition systems that the more one is vulnerable to one's own weaknesses, the easier one is a victim of the forces around oneself. So the first goal was to really master one's own weaknesses. So if I have anger, if I have greed or any of the 6 ripus, kama, krodha, moha, mada, matsarya, if I have any of these, then the circumstances around me are more powerful and I can always be won over. So the more I'm able to control this, and very interestingly, one of my research scholars, Piyush, he was looking at the relationship between the values, the interrelationship of values. And one of the values that we talk about is ahimsa. It's highly recommended. But it's very interesting that the word is an absence of something, sort of. They've not presented it as a positive thing, which is karuna could be, the compassion. But ahimsa means an absence of himsa. And he found in the literature that they have classified something like an 81 kinds of himsa. And he says, krodha, lobha, and moha. Anger, lobha is greed, and moha is delusional attitude. These are the sources of any kind of violence. Because each of these, if you go to the crux of it, stems from some kind of an insecurity. If there's an insecurity, then there's a need to, be that aggressor. And I think what martial arts really offers us is this confidence of what you mentioned earlier, the mind-body connect, of knowing your own strengths and being comfortable with your limitations with the confidence that you can overcome them if you work systematically around them. So I think that assurance, because it's a system, it's a parampara. I can see my friend who's not being able to do it, but tomorrow I see if that friend has put in that effort, is able to succeed in something that I might have hesitated. So if I'm ready to work that extra thing, I can do it. And the last point that I want to make here is the Vedic concept of the Arya, where it says, in the Vedas, they say, Krinvantu Vishwam Aryam, make of the whole world Arya. This word has been abused by Hitler when he, made it a racial term. But the word Arya means to fight. It comes from fight and to cultivate. So this concept of fighting in the Veda was about anyone who's ready to fight their own weaknesses. So are we ready to overcome our limitations, all our different kinds of insufficiencies, and overcome them? Any individual who was ready to do that became an Arya, became a noble person. And this was the idea when the Vedas said, Krinvantu Vishwa Arya. They didn't say only Bharatiya's Arya or only the martial artists. They said everybody needs to become this enlightened warrior. Because then you have a better society, because the society is made by every individual. So one individual is an inspiration and all of society becomes inspirational. So I think I'll stop here. Thank you very much.
Thank you. This could go on and on. It's a lovely panel. So I'm requesting Anuradha ji that we can schedule an online version of this within the next couple of weeks before we file the final report. If all of us could get together on a convenient time, at least another hour of serious discussion would help. So thank you so much, all of you, for...
Yes, I would also just like to add here, because from the IKS division, when we are holding these Dhara events, one of our objectives is to try and set up a vision 2047, like 100 years down. If these knowledge forms have to become really popular for our own society and our citizens, then what would it look like? And why should we put that why that you spoke of? Why should this country invest in martial arts for its future citizens? What are we going to do? And why our own martial arts as well? So I think that would be worth it for the white paper.
Yes.
Raghavji will help us with the white paper on that.
Thank you so much, Dilip sir, Dhanapandian, Rajiv, Amar, and Anuradha. Thank you very much. Now we'll have the Mardani Khel, because we don't want two back-to-back panels to happen. So please sit and enjoy the Mardani Khel that happens.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Two stage volunteers to please adjust the chairs so that Mardani Khel will come.